Okay, welcome, Black Carnivores. Welcome back to the podcast. So today I have an exciting guest. His name is Dom Crockett, and he is the founder and CEO of MightyMeats. And we recently met on Instagram, and I had to hear more about his story, the reason why he started this company, and what his meats are all about. And since we love meat here and we eat it, I think it's important for us to know more about this guy. So, Dom, I'm going to dive right in, and please tell us your story. Like, how did you come to value meat? Why do you? And what prompted you to start a company about it?
Well, thank you, Ade, for having me. I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy to have um, access to your platform and your community to talk about MightyMeats. So I just wanted to thank you again for having me. MightyMeats exists to democratize optimal nutrition for every mom in America. Um, I want to see a world in which no matter what socioeconomic background you come from, you as a mother or as a matriarch or even patriarch, whoever's buying food for your family, you can make an the optimal decision for not a lot of money. And I came to that dream and goal after learning about the healing powers of meat, after learning about organ meats in particular, and just after learning about the alternative lifestyle that is the carnivore way of thinking.
How did you first hear about carnivore, or
Um, I am a health and wellness nerd, so I'm constantly reading about health and wellness, science papers, different ways of eating, different philosophies of eating, different philosophies of growing food. And I cannot tell you where I first heard about this term carnivore, besides studying dinosaurs. Nobody ever used the term carnivore when it came to human diets until I would say maybe let's say about 4 years ago. And so then I started reading about all of these people who were healing themselves through this carnivore diet, people who were rejecting the standard American diet of grains and vegetable oils and factory farmed meat, and people who were just going back to kind of the old ways of getting an animal, using every part of the animal, and only relying on that for nutrition. And so through your work on Instagram, through following you, through following other folks on Instagram, and seeing that, oh, if you eat meat, you're not gonna die. Like if you just eat meat, you're not gonna spontaneously combust or something, because we are sold in this country by people who have vested interests in us purchasing grains, vegetables, excess amounts of fruits. That's a product that's sold to us. So I was like, okay, this is a new way of being.
Mm-hmm. So, did you have to do a lot of re-education to come around to supporting meat? Because, a lot of us in the health and wellness sphere have been educated for decades that, moving more and more towards a plant-based diet is the healthiest. Like, how did you, unlearn that, especially if you're like actively working in this industry?
Yeah. So I want to tell a story. I became hyper aware of my body and my health and wellness around the age of 13 when I was diagnosed with a heart condition. And at that point in time, I remember feeling like my life has to change because I wanted to run cross country and I had always had a heart murmur. And my mom said, before you start running 15 miles, we should probably take you to the cardiologist to check out your heart. And we did that. And around the age of 13, that's when I received the diagnosis of this hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And through the messaging that I got, I said, oh, I have to be a vegetarian now. Because I had been told and sold that meat is something that clogs your arteries and it will cause you not to have optimal health. And the heart healthy diet is a vegan, vegetarian, high carb diet. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start considering being a vegetarian. I also remember.
Wait, so I'm sorry, before you dive into that, what was the diagnosis and what is that for those of us who don't know?
Thank you. It is, so hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is a condition in which the heart is working extra hard, more hard than it needs to under normal circumstances. So you may have heard of someone who has hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Unfortunately, if it's an athlete that just kind of drops dead or passes out, it is an inflammation of the heart muscle. And so that is what I had that's what I got diagnosed with. That's what I have a genetic predisposition towards.
So it is it can be fatal in a very young, fit person. And so there is reason to be concerned.
That's correct.
And is it idiopathic? Like, is there any cause, or do you just randomly find that you have it and there's no explanation?
I know that it's genetic. My mother has it as well.
Oh, okay.
My mother has it as well. So I know it's genetic, but that's all I know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So sorry. So because I was kind of like, why at 15 would you suddenly be making like a huge dietary change that is, prescribed for people who are like on the path to cardiovascular disease? But I guess this makes more sense that it, can be a pretty big deal. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So
you were looking at plant-based diets. Yeah, go ahead.
I was looking at plant-based diets, and to get back to your original question is how did I kind of change my mind? A lot of unlearning had to be done. I do my best to have a scientific based thinking system. So if I have a hypothesis, I want to go out, or if I have a way I think the world is, I want to go out and see if it's actually true, as opposed to just operating on assumptions. And as I was reading more about alternative health and wellness to the mainstream, I saw a lot of heart patients like myself thriving on a carnivore diet or thriving on a high fat, maybe even ketogenic diet or carnivore diet. And so then again, my hypothesis of these foods are bad for my heart has just been debunked because I see people who are thriving. And so I started incorporating more animal meats into my diet. I started lessening my carbs, and I just started feeling better. And so that kind of just taught me, really what it taught me is that the best diet for you is the one that makes you feel the best. And I really, at that point, had to take responsibility for myself and say, you know what, I actually cannot rely on newspapers or doctors or other people to tell me what is best for my body. I actually have to do the work. I actually have to be present and say, and run these experiments. How do you feel after this meal? How do you feel after that?
Yeah, that's amazing. And, we've all become, mini scientists doing these N=1 experiments and really trying to figure out how like food impacts us. And it's really a shame how divorced we have become in our culture and our society from listening to our own body signals, because our bodies speak pretty, I think they speak pretty loudly and clearly. But you really have to ignore things a lot in order to, to ignore the signals that we're getting. So I love that, you dive right in. So what did your doctor say, or do they know? And how long have you been doing carnivore? What does your carnivore look like?
What do my doctors say? Well, thankfully, I am blessed enough to be able to go to a functional medicine doctor.
Mm,
Um, I see a functional medicine doctor. Her name is Dr. 𝗖𝗵𝗹𝗲𝗲. She operates out of New York and Pennsylvania. And she is already of a similar mind as me, as kind of approaching me as an N=1 experiment. We run a ton of tests. She knows that fat doesn't make you fat and fat's not going to kill you. And so all these things. So I think for anybody watching this, I feel called to say your doctors work for you. Like if somebody's not listening to you, if somebody's not open to kind of experimenting and exploring with you, you can fire them because they work for you. And so I'm
mhm,
thankful enough to have found and have hired a doctor that supports me throughout my journey. So I will say that. Um,
mhm.
what my carnivore looks like now. Well, when I have meat, I make sure that it is meat that has integrity and that is from farmers that have integrity. Um, and I try to honor the whole animal by eating uh, nose to tail. So that is kind of where MightyMeats, my product, came from. The desire to make it easier for everyone to eat nose to tail carnivore um, in the simplest way.
Mhm. Well, tell us more about why you think organ meats are important, and how, you first started eating them.
So organ meats are important because they are the most nutritionally dense parts of the animals. Um, in the wild, when let's say wolves hunt, um, the alpha of the pack or the kind of top ranking wolves will get the liver and they'll get the heart and they'll get the kidneys. They will get the most um, food with the most prana, the most like life force in it. And everyone else gets the muscle meat. And if you just take a look at our modern day the standard American diet, it's all muscle meat. We're not getting any of the density, the nutrient density that is available in organ meats. So after reading about that and after learning about folks online that have incorporated this ancestral kind of ingredient, because it's also interesting too, because it's like my grandmother and my great grandmother and like they all ate liver all the time and they all ate organ meats. It was, I just think it came from a spirit of necessity and not wanting to waste anything. But now in our fast food culture, we just want to, we want a burger and we want to throw it away. Um, so after realizing that organ meats were nutritious, but running into the customer problem, which is they're hard to find and they're kind of gross. People don't want to like. We've been used to a packaged meat product. We've been used to meat that is ground, packaged, meat, clean, and organs are not that way. And so what I started doing for myself is I started going to nose to tail butchers and I started who had organ meats and I started asking them for a custom blend for myself because I knew that I wanted to eat this stuff. I was making pâtés and stuff, but I mean, pâté's got a ton of butter. I don't want to be sitting around eating pâté all day. So I had to find an alternative. And so I went to butchers. I started asking for blends and I noticed that I felt great. I noticed that I found it taste better. I felt more nourished after I was done with my meals. And so I just kept doing it. And it wasn't until I started learning more about the vitamin supplement industry where I found a great opportunity for MightyMeats to have some benefit. Women who are expecting or women who are pregnant or postpartum take a ton of vitamins. They take a ton of prenatal vitamins that are mostly choline, B vitamins, all of these things in these pills, right? And that's when the light bulb in my head kind of went off. It's like, well, if women would just eat liver, they wouldn't have to buy vitamins from a lab that is not regulated by the FDA. People don't know that, but vitamins and minerals are not regulated, so you don't know what you're getting. So I was like, if I could design organ meats in a better package to make moms, kids, dads feel good about eating organ meats, I think I would have something. And so that's kind of where MightyMeats stepped in.
Mm-hmm. And did you have like a pregnant family member or wife, or I don't know, what got you kind of thinking about pregnant women? I mean, of course, yes, they do need more vitamins and minerals, but frankly, we're all kind of undernourished and overfed, right?
That's a good question. I feel called to say it was like, I mean, it was a little bit, okay, it was a little bit of divine intervention, and it was also a little bit of my training. So I'll start with my training first. Like, I have gone to design school. I've worked at startup agencies before, uh, and I've learned how to find a customer or find pain points in the world and try to solve them, right? And then I guess the kind of divine intervention part is thinking about who on this planet needs nutrition the most. And it is expecting mothers, because they have the next generation, literally like the next frontier is within their control. So that's when I kind of felt that that cohesion or that kind of intersection. I was like, this feels right. Like, I think this is right. Like, this makes sense from a business perspective, but I feel it's right too, because I now am doing something that's beyond selling burgers. Like, a goal of mine is to make the MightyMeats open source. Like, you see what MightyMeats is. It's liver, heart, kidney, and a fatty cut of beef. If MightyMeats is not in your journey to make your family healthy, that's great. If it is, that's great. But my goal is to get people eating nutriently dense foods so that they can have more power to do what they want to do on this planet.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I guess I asked that because I wonder if the women know that this is a pain point. Like, you and I both recognize that it is important, and especially, for someone bringing in new life. But, I mean, at a bare level, just getting people to accept that red meat is healthy, is like already, really hard. And then you add on, and you should have kidney and liver. And, it's like, ooh. So yeah, you got your work cut out for you.
I do. There are, if we go into the grocery store, we would go to the butter aisle, and we'd have two options. We could get grass-fed, heavy, high fat butter that you and I both know is can be medicinal, or we can get which is hydrogenated plant oils. But that Smart Balance has that American Heart Association stamp on it. that's been paid for by the American Heart Association. And I'm not telling anybody what to do, but it's just, I guess I'm just asking for people to think about who profits off of you buying fake food and still staying sick. And who profits off of you supporting maybe a local farm and feeling good.
Absolutely. I fully support the message, and will do my best to get it out there. But we are definitely pushing on and fighting an uphill battle just in terms of getting people to eat organ meats. But I love that you're, putting something together to make it, a little bit easier. So let's actually talk about it. So you said already that it has what? Heart, liver, and what?
So it is an 80-20 blend. You're going to get 80% of a fairly fatty cut of beef. Usually it's brisket. We're always transparent on our website about, what you can expect, but usually it's brisket or like a chuck roast. And then the 20% is broken down into a third of liver, heart, and kidney. And your kids are not going to know, whoever you're cooking for is not going to know it's in there. It does have, I think, a little bit more of a savory taste, but everybody can try it for themselves. But the product is essentially just an upgraded ground beef product.
Mm-hmm. So can you tell me a little bit about, how you source the meat, where this is actually produced? Is it grass-fed? Does that matter? All of that.
Yes. So it is grass-fed, grass-finished. That is what I want to offer at this time. That is the world in which I want to see cows eating what they're supposed to eat all the time. There is grass-fed corn finished on the market, but I choose to only source grass-fed, grass-finished foods. I am partnering right now with a farm called Rybrook Farms in Pennsylvania. That is where I get all my supplies from, and I use a facility in Malvern, Pennsylvania, to make the grinds and to pack it. And that's it. It's fairly simple. It's really like, that's the thing. It's like, the most difficult part about making MightyMeats is the sourcing, because if a mom were to say, I'm going to do this myself, you'd have to have a meat grinder. You'd have to find a place near you that has grass-fed, grass-finished meat, and you'd also have to find a store that gets in these organ meats, because a lot of stores don't get them because people are not really that interested in eating them.
Mm-hmm. So when you say stores, are you talking about like regular supermarkets that maybe have a butcher counter versus like an actual full-on butcher? So if you
Correct.
go to an actual full-on butcher, you can usually find these things.
Correct.
Okay. And I find that they are, a lot of times they are in supermarkets, but since you don't know what they look like and you're not looking for them, a lot of times you don't see it until you are like actually looking for it. And then now when I go to my grocery store, I'm like, wow, you've got like heart. And I didn't know you had all these things. Mm-hmm. So and I remember one time I bought 2 hearts, and the cashier was ringing them up and looking at them like, what is this? And another guy, I think the manager, came over and he was like, wow, I didn't know people actually purchase this. Like, how do you prepare this? What do you do with it? Like,
yeah.
Don't you know supermarket etiquette? Like, why are you getting all up in my business? But
like, wow, you're really gonna eat that?
Yeah, I mean, essentially,
like,
they were trying to be polite about it. That's essentially what they were doing. Okay, so so I have a couple of questions, and
sure.
Over time, I I think that most of us in the carnivore community are a bit skeptical about certainly the medical health industry, diet industry, and just in general about a lot of things now. So
yes.
and we've had companies that, had exposés where they were claiming to be grass-fed, grass-finished, and were not. So
Yeah.
what makes you trust this particular provider or the farm that you have gone to? Have you gone there? Have you hung out with the cows? Have you met, the people? And then the packaging plant, what about them? I'd love to hear, whatever your thoughts are.
Yeah. So yeah, I know the company you're talking about, and I actually had gone to California, to that place specifically to eat there. So it was a bummer to hear about those stories. And yeah, I mean, I realized that the only thing, especially with a food product that people, and especially pregnant women, are going to be eating, that integrity and is it's the only thing I have. So I have known Rybrook Farms, where I source the meat from. I've known them for about 4 months. I have been buying it myself, cooking it for myself, checking out, talking to the people that I see at the farmers market every Saturday, asking them questions, and overall just getting a general feel for the company. Is this a type of company that I want to support? I have not been to the farm yet, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel as though they have the right amount of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with my kitchen. The thing that I can promise my customers is that we're going to be honest. So if we have to make a change to a something in the supply chain, we're going to let you know before we ship out the product. And that is
Mm-hmm.
something I'm super conscious of as I grow this business, and as people start to approach me about investing. Because what happens when you take outside capital, things can get fuzzy. I want to
Mm-hmm.
maintain the clarity in the work that I'm doing and the product that I'm producing. So that's why I'm going low and slow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, as far as that scandal went, like, I don't know that I don't necessarily have a problem with eating regular grain finished beef. I think that it can be, a fine choice, and it certainly, elevates your health far beyond, where the standard American diet is. But
Right.
more importantly, I don't want to pay, 5 times as much for beef that's also at the Stop and Shop or or the Myers or whatever. So it's just important to have that honesty, and and it might still be fine with me to to have beef that is not grass fed. But yeah, so I just wanted to put that out there. Having that transparency and honesty, I think, is really important.
Absolutely. I think
Hmm.
you don't want to be lied to. I
Hmm.
eat grain when I'm out at a restaurant. Um, I eat grain finished beef. Like, it's not, it's not a big deal. The big deal is about maintaining integrity and
Hmm.
being transparent about something that's going in people's bodies, because people have a right to know.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, well, that does beg the question. Do you think it really is significant? The difference between grass-fed and grain finished or sorry, grass finished and grain finished. Since let's get this clear, all cattle are grass-fed through much of their life, depending on where they are. But we're talking about the finishing process. So, do you think that it is the difference between grain finished and grass finished is so important that you only want to use grass finished beef, or might you later on maybe offer two lines of grass finished and grain finished, and maybe you have two different price points, or I don't know.
That's a good question. I have actually not considered that. Going into creating MightyMeats, I wanted to use MightyMeats as a platform to support regenerative agriculture and to support the farms that I feel are really being a net positive for the land that they use. And so in my mind, it always was supporting the farms with the most integrity. Now, you bring up a good point, which is being able to offer this at different price points for different folks. And that's not something that I've considered yet, but I will. I think too, with grain finished too, right? It's like, well, what grain are you feeding them? I've recently started eating soy and corn-free eggs. And I think
that's a night and day difference.
Night and day. Like, yeah, that's what I had this morning. I was like, wow, this is just so good. And so, like, it's just, I want people to ask questions. I think every consumer should feel empowered. If you're getting my money, I can ask as many questions about this product as I want. Okay, if you are grain finished, what grains are you feeding them? Because there's a difference between feeding a cow GMO soy, finishing it, and organic ancient grains or something. You know what I mean? So, but I will think about more about the situations in which we may want to consider offering a grain option.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know enough about regenerative farming, but I wonder if grain finished is necessarily incompatible with regenerative farming. I mean, because you're just talking about fattening the cattle at the end of the life cycle. So, those things may not be incompatible. And yes, of course, we want, non-GMO and, all like no antibiotics and all of that. But this is what's special about beef and lamb and other ruminant animals, is that they're able to take, food that we really can't consume and make use of and turn it into a product that's highly nutritious. So yeah, like a pig or a chicken eating that grain is not going to work, but a cattle doing a cow or beef doing it is, it does work, to some extent. So yeah, I mean, there are no answers to these questions. These are just things to consider. And but I'm excited to hear how you have put this together. And I guess I thought that there were, I don't know, a lot of rules and regulations and hoops to jump through when you start trying to sell food, but it sounds like it hasn't been, too difficult for you.
I will say I'm still on the journey.
Okay. All right. So it is. And what is up with beef prices? I mean, it's like all of a sudden, boom, it's so much more expensive. So what's that about?
Well, inflation is here. Inflation is here. Nothing is for free.
Yeah.
A lot of things have, the facts are decisions were made throughout these past 2 years that we've all been going through. And where we are now means that food is going to get more expensive. And that's why
it seems like just meat, not food.
I think,
go up everywhere.
From what I'm seeing, the price of everything is going up. It may be more drastic in meat. I feel like now is an even more perfect time for people to get more conscious and more intentional about what they're buying at the grocery store. And so that's why I'm excited to be able to offer MightyMeats, because if that can take away 2 line items where before you were spending money on meat and then you were spending money on gummy vitamins for your kids, I'm hoping now you can combine those 2 line items in your budget, and the whole family will feel better.
Yeah. I mean, I always thought that doing a carnivore diet is cheaper but only when you take out the other things that you're not eating. But if you're adding meat and not necessarily removing, the chips and, the pastas and the various sauces and, snacks and things, then, it's just it's an additional expense. But when I'm in the grocery store, like the price per pound of broccoli versus ground beef is not that far off. And with broccoli, you're throwing away half the weight when you don't eat the stem and this and that. But, I don't have any waste now in my house. My garbage, it lasts a long time. All I've got left is a little styrofoam tray that the meat came in. And that's about it. So yeah, it's different. It's just a very different living experience.
It is. And I just want to commend you and thank you for having this platform, and particularly being a Black woman and having this platform, because it's so interesting. And I'm saying we as like people of color in this country, Black people in this country, like the consumption that we entertain, I just feel like is a lot sometimes. And, we go to Walmart, we buy all these things, and that's the only story that's being told. And that's why I really like your community and really like the work that you're doing, because you feel like there are people that want to go to the farmer's market with me, or there are people that will just want to go to a steakhouse and just have steak with me, or, you're showing a different way of being for Black health and wellness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I hope it takes off, because I think it's so important. And really, we're just like being given no favors by the way people are eating now. So yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Why did you decide on liver, kidney, and heart? There's a lot of organs, and, do you like any others? And yeah.
I decided on liver, kidney, and heart because the combination of them gave me the most most complete nutrient profile. Liver, you're going to get vitamin A in the form of retinol, which is what our body really likes to make your skin nice, to make cell reproduction. It's also the fancy cream that people go to the dermatologist and pay, hundreds of dollars for. That retinol cream you can get from liver. Kidneys have a lot of copper in them, a lot of trace minerals. Liver's got that choline that pregnant moms need, and that's essential for brain health. Heart's got CoQ10, which is essential for your heart and all these things. Another thing is, in the Black community, we are having trouble with our liver, heart, and kidneys, like in our physical bodies as a collective. And in many ancient ways of eating, in terms of traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine, there is a belief that eating something of another animal will heal that part of yourself. So I feel like MightyMeats allows for those organs to regenerate as well by consuming those. In terms of other organ meats I like, sometimes I'll have a tongue taco. Like, there are other organ meats. I'll allow people to do their own Googling. I'll just say that right now, I just eat primarily liver, heart, and kidney.
Okay, yeah. I'm a big fan of bone marrow. I just put up a post on Instagram. I feel like that is a super easy entryway into the whole idea of organ meats, because it's kind of it's a big leap to go from McDonald's patties to liver.
It is a big leap, and that's why I wanted to place MightyMeats in the middle of that. And you know, it's funny. I've got some bone marrow bones in my freezer, and you've just inspired me to take them out and make them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm glad you made this mix. So I personally at home have tried to kind of make a mix, but I don't have the proper equipment. So one time I have a like a Cuisinart food processor. And so one time I had some chuck roast and I had some liver. And so I ground them together. I tried to use like a low processor with the food processor and sort of make my own sort of ground beef, and I made meatballs with it, and I served it to a friend of mine, but I didn't tell him what I had done. I was just like, oh, here's some meatballs, and he like raved about them. I mean, he just could not get over them, and I was like, wow. And he was like, I love it, it has such a beefy, deep, savory flavor. And I was like, okay. And so he asked how I made it. And I just was like, oh, it was liver and beef. And I guess I should have been more explicit, because he then went out and bought like ground beef and some liver, and it did not work. It did not work. So I can imagine, once you get the grind right, it can actually be delightful and work much more effectively than what I was trying to do at home.
Yes. And that I love that you use those words that, it's funny that it's like, it's this kind of mannerism. It's like, it's everybody who I give it to, they always do that. It's got this like very grounding, dense, right? Everybody describes it in that way. And it is that. It really, you're tasting the minerals. I think it's a way of our body telling us like, there's something here. Like this isn't just another meatball. I believe it's your body telling you like, yeah, eat more of that.
Yeah. Well, gee, so I definitely am going to order some, but how, in the meantime, tonight, I do have some heart in my freezer. I do have some liver, and I do have some chuck roast. So I wonder what I do with that. Yeah, because I'm definitely
just
feeling
a
like
little
I
tip.
could have some.
A tip. So, especially with liver, liver can be very slimy. It can be very kind of soft. So what you want to do when you are preparing organ meats, I like to defrost them and then put it back into the freezer for, let's say, 15 minutes. You want it firm. You don't want it all like loose and like liquidy. And then when it will be easier to work with, is what I'm trying to say. Like I have at home and at the facility, I have a meat grinder. So what we do is we get the organs very cold to allow it to pass through the meat grinder more efficiently, and you get a much more even blend.
Huh. Okay. Already.
Just a little freebie.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense, and that explains why some of the challenges I had when I was doing it. So that's awesome. Yeah, and I had been making jerky with liver for my dog as treats, and she loves it, and especially Heart. Heart has this way of, the first time I made jerky, I don't know what I did or how I sliced it, but it was like potato chips. They were crispy. When I bit into them, they crunched. I gave them to my dog. They like crunched. And there was a lot of fat on the outside of the heart. So like the chip would be like half meat and half fat.
Nice.
So that batch people are still talking about. I've never been able to recreate that, crunchy texture, but they're still okay. I don't really like the taste of heart, but other people seem to really like it, and my dog too. So
two things there. Two things there. Actually, when I was developing MightyMeats, a huge inspiration was dog food. Because as I was thinking, are people going to want to buy blended meat and organs? I went, well, they're already buying it for their dog. Like, dogs are already eating better than us, so I said, well, that's a directional, that's a directional, some evidence to say that people are looking, people know that these things are nutritious. They're feeding them to their dogs. And so, but obviously, no, a human doesn't want to think about dog food when they're eating their food. So I had to make it, completely different.
Yeah.
Although a working title at once upon a time was dog food, and I got feedback because I also thought I was gonna, make it like a paleo kind of like, real macho kind of product, and people were like, nobody wants to eat dog food. So I was like, that's a good point.
Wait, but isn't there a brand of dog food called MightyMeats or Mighty Dog?
I got the LLC, so if there is, then
well, I mean, I'm fine with sharing pretty much the same menu with me and my dog, but I get it. I get where people would not want that. But I don't think that your food is at all like dog food. So
thank you, Dave.
Yes. And I am a big fan of ground meat. I eat I like make meatballs in my air fryer all the time. That's like my go-to easy, quick, nutritious, delicious meal. So I'm definitely, I'm team ground beef or ground meat.
I'm posting today on the MightyMeats Instagram at @HeyMightyMeats. I'm gonna post today my herbed meatball recipe because again, about nutrition, like nutrient density. One thing that I'm really interested in is taking a look at each food and asking myself, is this gonna hurt me more than it's helping me, or is it gonna help me more than it's hurting me? I do eat fruits and I do eat vegetables. I'm just more aware of what am I trying to achieve at this point in time? What does my body need? All these sorts of things. So, for instance, herbs are incredibly nutrient dense and can be very medicinal. So that can, add some things in there. But what I'm learning about myself is I'm sensitive to some spices. I'm starting to realize there are some nightshade spices that I gotta take a break from because it's not agreeing with me. Do you find that similarly? Do you find that similarly with spices with you and herbs?
Yeah, at a certain point, maybe like a year ago now, I decided to really cut out all spices and see what happened. And I had a market improvement. So
yeah.
But then after doing it for a short time, I just kind of also lost interest in spices. So, periodically now I will make something with a lot of spice, but I tend not to like it. So, yeah.
Because you know how good you feel in the alternative way.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I feel like spice, like once you like meat, you like it, and if you're eating something that's like, reasonably good quality, like it tastes good. And spices are, and heavy sauces are kind of, they were kind of created to cover like not so great, base ingredients.
Yes.
But if you've got a good steak, I can't see that it needs anything but salt.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
but I'm certainly, yeah, I was going to say, I've been exploring smoked salts, and that has really been a delight. I ordered some from Redmond Sea Salt, and I'll put the link below for, I have an affiliate code for Redmond, so if you want to order from them, but they have this smoked salt that I ordered, their initial batch, and oh my God, it was awesome. And then they keep selling out. And so I have not been able to get it since, but I have ordered from different companies, and I'm really enjoying the smoked salts. And I think that's a good thing to explore. But there's all kinds of salt in the world. People ask me all the time, what kind they should get, and I feel like, I go through so much salt. You should just get all the different kinds. Try them all. See what you like. The one with the little girl in the yellow dress, maybe put that one aside and just try a lot of different salts, because there are tons from all over the world, all with, varying, benefits and properties.
Yes. I've recently rediscovered salt, and anytime I felt fatigued or tired, if I just have a little salt water, it's really just our bodies telling us we need minerals. And I just have to mention, though, you and I are two melanated people talking about meat and salt in America, where we have one group of people who is shamed for eating, shamed for eating salt. That's causing your high blood pressure. I just feel as though, one thing I love about the carnivore diet is that you can eat the most delicious foods and be satisfied and be healthy. There is no deprivation with a carnivore or an animal-based diet. And I feel for a lot of people in America who are overweight, who are unhealthy, and they think it's their fault. They think for some sort of reason there's something wrong with them, or they don't have the willpower, the discipline. And it's like, you know what? Maybe that's the case, or maybe you're just surrounded by poisonous foods or poisonous kind of like copies of these foods. Like if you had sea salt versus, the salt with the girl in the yellow dress, how would you feel? If you had grass-fed beef versus feedlot beef, how would you feel? If you cut out all polyunsaturated fatty acids and vegetable oils and oxidized fats, there's a lot to talk about. And again, I'm just happy that you're doing it.
Absolutely, me too. There was one thing I was going to ask. I don't know. I can't remember now.
You'll come to.
Yeah. Well, so tell us where we can get your product. How can we support you? What do we need to do?
Thank you. So on Instagram, we are at MightyMeats. So that's our Instagram handle. You can support us and follow us there. We'll be sharing. The goal is to have it be an educational resource for people who are interested in living and eating in an ancestral and high integrity way. So we're going to have recipes. We're going to highlight restaurants that are doing farm to table cuisine. We are going to highlight different farms where you can source your food, or where you can take your family to learn about foods. The goal is for it to be a map for you to get mighty, for you to kind of learn about alternative food in your environment. Our website is mighty-meats.co. I am still working on that, so just follow us on Instagram. Still working a lot on the e-commerce site, but follow us on Instagram. There's a link in our bio. Sign up for our email list. You'll get some percentage off for your first order, and we can start the relationship that way. You can order 1 pound, you can see that you love it, and then you can decide where you want to go.
Oh, okay. So it's not like you can just go to the website and sort of order. It is a
you will be able to in about 36 hours.
Okay. Okay. I wondered about that because after that post I put up, there were some people who had asked me about how, how do they go about ordering. So good. Okay. So by the time this, everybody who's watching, by the time this airs, you should easily be able to order, and I will make sure to put the link in the description. I'm really excited about it because I think this is a much needed product, and it's it's a good idea to get some organ meat in. And I do try to tell people we think of variety as like different types of foods, but in some ways the way we eat meat, there's no variety. It's muscle meat from multiple animals, but it's still the same type of meat. And we trying to get more of the organ meats, the connective tissues, the fat, and and so on, that, and the bones, that allows you to get a much greater bang from your meat consumption.
Yes, eat your bone broth, everybody.
Yeah,
eat and drink your bone broth.
Yeah. Okay, well, is there anything else you would like to share with everyone before we wrap up? Because I think we have had a fascinating conversation, and I'm really excited to see where your company goes. And yeah, I love it.
Thank you, 𝗖𝗍𝗲. No, I'm just very thankful for you having me on. I'm very excited to be following my passion and purpose, which is educating people about their bodies and the food that can properly fuel their bodies. And I'm excited to see where this goes as well.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for coming on, and everyone, thank you for watching. I look forward to continuing the conversation and bringing you the next guest. So I will see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.